All right, so it looks like a few people are joining us now. Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here this morning. My name is Logan LaPierre. I'm the program manager with the Tri-City Regional Chamber of Commerce. Typically, I give it a minute or so before we get started, but it looks like we are already off to a great start. So before we get started, I just want to let everyone know that we have some really intelligent minds behind this presentation today. So feel free to submit your questions to them using the Q&A box in Zoom or the comments section on Facebook, and we will address those towards the end of the presentation. And I think that's all I really have to say. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dustin Winsack with the STCU Southridge branch, and he is going to introduce our two speakers this morning.
Great. Thank you, Logan. And thank you, everybody, for joining us here today. My name is Dustin Winsack. I work for STCU out here in Kennewick at the Southridge location, Spokane Teachers Credit Union. We're a credit union that was founded by educators and like many businesses that have been facing the same concerns about employee health and retention, as well as hiring over the past year or two. So we were excited to support the Ask the Experts, and we're looking forward to today's discussion on the Great Resignation. And today we've got two guests. We have Isa Soljic. Isa has been with the Employment Security Department's Labor Market and Performance Analysis Division for the past 12 years. As the regional labor economist, Isa provides labor market information and analysis to local economic planners, administrators, businesses, and residents. Currently serving as the local labor market and economic expert on multiple organizations. Previously, she worked for the Idaho Department of Labor and the Idaho Neurological Institute. We also have Tiffany Scott. Tiffany Scott is the Chief Executive Officer of the Benton Franklin Workforce Development Council. The BFWDC leads the public workforce system for Benton and Franklin counties, including WorkSource, Columbia Basin, and Tri-City Futures, a comprehensive center for youth and young adults seeking education, work experience, and employment. The BFWC contributes to regional economic growth by investing federal, state, local, and private funds into programs and community-based organizations that provide local workforces skills and education and provide companies with qualified talent. In addition, much like me, she's a graduate of Eastern Washington University. Go Eags. So for now, I'm going to kick it over to our experts and let them begin their presentations. Thanks again, Logan.
Good morning, and good morning, Tri-Cities, and thank you for having me this morning with you. And Tiffany and I are hoping to give you some insight to what we have here in Tri-Cities, into county region in regards of employment and unemployment information and how that's impacting businesses as well as job seekers throughout our region. So as regional labor economist, I am working with the Washington Employment Security Department to disseminate this information so you can make right decisions. And you can find one of me or one like me around the state. There's 6 of us, and you can always ask us any questions in regards to wages, wage progressions, occupational statistics, and things like that could help you make the right decisions at the right time. So today I'm going to start with a little bit higher level information at the state and give you insight to what's going on around the state in regards to labor market and employment market. As well as go into detail of local information. And then we're going to scale up to national level to look at these statistics in regards of what's happening in the labor market, who's in the labor market, who's exiting labor market, and what are the reasons for those changes. So hopefully I can enlighten you with some details that can better serve you for the jobs you're doing. So let's start. As of March 2022, Washington State has over 3.4 million individuals in the labor force. The labor force has grown over the year by 4.4%. We added 169,000 people into the labor force statewide. That's very significant. We have been increasing labor force statewide over the past 6 months in hundred thousands, and that's very significant movement towards encouraging those individuals who are 16 years and older to participate in one way or the other, whatever being unemployed, looking for a job, to trying to secure something that you really want to do, or actually being employed and liking the job you do, or maybe even looking for another job or to promote yourself towards the next level in your career. So this good news of 4.5% increase in labor force is encouraging for many employers around the state. That engagement of the labor force is actually expanding a little bit faster than it was 2 years ago during pandemic, or even 1 year ago in the later stages of pandemic. So when we talk about the labor force, of course, there's total labor force that can be employed, unemployed. Unemployment rate for total residents in the state of Washington was about 5.7%. That leaves us at about 4.3% unemployment rate statewide as of March 2022. So that's 3.9 million individuals who are actively employed in the state of Washington. When we look at the number of unemployed, that brings us down into thousands. So we have about 175,000 individuals who are actively engaged in job market search, and for the past 4 weeks, and they are looking to find a job that best matches their skills and abilities. So 175,000 individuals is down by 26% from year before. And that's about 63,000 individuals less in unemployment who are most likely employed right now. What the story about employment here in the state of Washington is that those individuals that entered the labor force, over 169,000, we had 63,000 of them who were unemployed to find jobs, and the rest came into the labor market. So a very good mix of those coming into labor market and also those who are unemployed finding that successfully jobs that they can earn their household incomes and wages. So the next level to look at the state is to understand what's going on with the business structure. How many jobs do we have in total non-farm employment in the state of Washington? As of March, about 3.5 million jobs are available in the state of Washington. 173,000 job increase just over the year from March 2021 to March 2022. That was about 5.3% increase in a total non-farm employment for state of Washington. When we look at the number of unemployed persons versus the number of those jobs available, which right now, most recently, I just checked 3 days ago, we have over 285,000 jobs listed through WorkSource website in state of Washington. That's 285,000 jobs listed. So when we take the ratio, it's almost 1.5 jobs for every unemployed person in state of Washington. So statewide, job market is very tight. Job market in a western area of a state is even tighter. So when you look at around the state, what's happening in the labor market, we can see that unemployment rates and availability of labor force is varied among all 39 counties. In Benton, Franklin counties, and most of the Eastern Washington, seasonal factors play a big role in regards of higher unemployment rates and availability of labor force. For 5.4% unemployment rate in Benton County, a 7.4% unemployment rate in Franklin County. And as of March, we have a larger percentage of resident labor force who generally gets into seasonal jobs starting May, June, July, August, September. And by the end of November, these individuals exit that labor market and are unemployed, standing by for their jobs to come back into the season. So that includes agricultural activities, construction, leisure hospitality, and some other industries for our area. The largest driver of our higher unemployment rates here in Tri-Cities, the majority of Eastern Washington, is the agricultural, construction, and food manufacturing industries, where majority of our workforce is employed. So 4.3% statewide, not seasonally adjusted rate is lower than ours, but it doesn't mean that our economy is not doing good. So when we look at more details about Benton Franklin labor force statistics, it shows that we have over 152,000 individuals actively engaged in the labor market for past 4 weeks in March. So with this, labor force grew about 8,683 people over the year. That's about 6.0% growth over the year. It's very significant. But let's talk a little bit about the resident employment. So we have a significant growth of individuals in our labor force, over 8,000 individuals labor force right now in comparison to last year. But our resident employment is at 94%. But over the year, total resident employment increased by 7.2%, or 9,500 employed individuals. So 143,000 people are actively employed who are residing in our communities. They could be working locally or in region, or even teleworking, which is very common nowadays, especially being one of those preferable ways to do work due to COVID induced ways of doing the business, and availability of such work that got amplified during COVID and post-COVID effects. So currently, when we look at our labor force, we had a lot more people come into the labor market and find jobs than number of individuals who were unemployed and find jobs. So over the year, a number of individuals decreased in total unemployment. We have about 9,000 people looking for a job right now. That's a very large number of local residents who are 16 years and older and looking to find a job for the past 4 weeks. So 907 people entered employment over the year out of those unemployed. That's a decrease of 9%, but it does gives us something to think about. When we look at our ratio of available jobs and available workforce, we'll see on the next slide, we have about 1.5 people per every job opening. So our dynamic of labor force here is slightly different than that dynamic at the state level. So let's look at those jobs and what we have here in region. At the regional level, we have, as of third quarter of 2021, so that's most of the administrative data and most recent administrative data we have. We had over 128,000 covered, unemployment covered insurance jobs. And with this 128,000 jobs, increase in the jobs was about 4,900. So we had significant losses of jobs in 2020, and then from third quarter 2020 to third quarter 2021, our total employment here in Tri-Cities increased. But that also gives us number of total employers. In this region, we have over 9,300 employers who are employing anywhere from 1 employee to 4,000, 5,000, even more employees in their facilities. With these establishments, on average, in Benton Franklin counties, these employees are paying about $1,000 a week. These two counties we have here in the area do differ in regards of their weekly pays. Weekly pay in Benton County is about $1,200 a week, which is the 4th highest paying county out of 39 counties in the state. Well, Franklin County is right there in the middle, around 20th place, maybe 14th place. And it pays an average about $956 per hour. Both of these wages over the year basically from 2020 to 2021 have increased significantly. Larger increase was in Franklin County in regards of wages, so 4.9%. Benton County weekly wages increased about 3.7%. When we look at in comparison to the state level, state average weekly wage was at $1,578. It's the third highest ranked state in the nation. Region increased, a state increased in total average weekly wage 6.1%. So our increases were not as significant or as large in regards of weekly wages in the region comparison to the state. So we are just about almost half and 1.5% of that state level increase in wages. So we have some ground to make up in regards of progression, but also it doesn't mean that these average weekly wages don't represent industries we have available here. And certainly when we look at the industry makeup of Tri-Cities, I'll highlight this map here for you. You can see here around the state. I was going to leave it for you to look at it. It's really telling, but you can see that almost all communities with significant urbanized centers and significant diversity of industries have regained their employment again. We have few communities that are still struggling to gain their employment back, and those were highly impacted due to decreases in industries like leisure and hospitality and construction in many areas. So it's very telling to where we stand in regards of our growth versus other counties in the state. So Franklin County grew about, Franklin County growth in employment was about middle 14th place in from same time last year, same time as 2020, sorry. But Benton County was slightly higher growth, and it was in 7th place in regards of job growth in total employment. The makeup of the industries really play a big role of each one of these counties: expansion, growth, retention, resiliency to recessions and impacts of pandemics and things like that. And currently for Benton Franklin region, industry makeup is very diverse. Top industries in local area, taking out the ownership aspect of this, healthcare and social assistance is highest employing industry, followed by retail, trade, educational services, administration, support, waste management, remediation services, agriculture, accommodation, food services, construction, professional technical services, manufacturing. All of these industries make well over 60% of total employment in the area. When you have such a diverse industry makeup, any one of these industries that get impacted, there is possibility for another one to pick up. And having base in some of these industries like agriculture, construction, manufacturing, and healthcare, it really is the base where it's diverse in a way to what customers they're serving. So stability can be diversified, and resiliency to impacts from outside factors can be mitigated to full level or half level of job losses, so that we don't get shut down all the way. But if our industry makeup was top 3 industries making up 70% of total employment, then any one of these industries impacts could impact the whole region significantly. Characteristics of current employed workers play a big role on how active our labor force is and what kind of labor force we have available locally. So characteristics right now shows that majority of all employed individuals in the region are male workers, 52%. They are not Hispanic at 74%, but we have a very large Hispanic workforce at 25.6%. Statewide, that's about 12%. So our Hispanic workforce is much larger and a lot more engaged. Current educational attainment, majority of all jobs in our region are between some college and bachelor's degree or higher. We do still have some jobs in that less than high school and high school diploma, but majority, when you take 44% of all jobs are in that some college, associate's degree, and higher educational attainment. Of course, prime working age is dominating our local community. 52.9% of all employed workforce is in that age range. So moving on to the next level is to compare the current happenings. So we now looked at the total employment, something that just happens quarterly and annually. Now let's look at the March numbers. For total non-farm employment, which takes out our agricultural activities, and as you've seen, agriculture is one of the top employing industries in the region. It was very important for me to mention that. And right now, April, May, June, July, and August, September, October, November will bring in a significant number of agricultural migrants, seasonal farm workers into our region, where they will be working and also spending and enjoying local leisurely and retail activities and food services activities for a reason. So they are contributing a great deal in regards of their spending and their activities for local community. And a number of individuals coming through here is very significant for all the agricultural activities that we have for the region. So in regards of our total non-farm employment, which takes out the agricultural activities, which I mentioned, I'm comparing here 12 different metropolitan statistical areas. And on this, you can see Benton Franklin counties, Kennewick MSA, which includes both counties together, lost about 10.4% of jobs from March to April 2020. When we take April through March 2022, which is basically exactly 2 years, we have gained all the jobs lost and added some. So 115% recovery rate for the jobs for us. What I have highlighted here for you as well is that you can see all the major metropolitan statistical areas in Eastern Washington, and you can see the majority of all Eastern Washington metropolitan statistical areas did not get impacted as much in regards of job losses when compared to those in Western. But job recovery in Eastern Washington for almost all workforce for metropolitan statistical areas is higher, and they're leading in job recovery versus that of I-5 corridor. So right now, Wenatchee is at 123% job recovery, followed by Walla Walla and Spokane in the second place, and Tri-Cities in third place in regards to job recovery. What does that mean for us? Currently, we have over 119,000 jobs in non-farm employment. Non-farm jobs expanded by 5.6% over the year. We added 6,300 non-farm jobs. Well, you've seen the 115% job recovery. Almost all of our industries, as of March 2022, have fully recovered. The only industry that's falling behind, and it only has 25% recovery rate so far, is government, as local and state educational services are still navigating the system of how to provide their services to local population and our youth. Over 6,000 job openings, as I mentioned earlier, are located in Benton Franklin counties, and we have a great labor force to supply that. Well, that doesn't mean we don't have challenges. So next level, I'm going to take you up to this national statistics to show you that what's happening nationally in regards of labor market also will impact us as well. So we do have 1.5 unemployed individuals for every job opening, but it doesn't mean the skill ratio knowledge ratio, qualification ratios are matching with the job openings that we have locally. So both job openings rates and quit rates remain high at the national level. And relatively speaking, for when you look at historically, it's some of the highest rates ever. So job openings are at high level and quit rates are one of the highest rates ever seen in history. Slower than expected employment growth nationally has seen more likely, in large part, recruiting difficulties, wage growth will likely be strong enough to impact some inflationary trajectory for the next couple of months. But we are expecting that both job openings and quit rates will start easing off into the summer and past the summer of 2022. When we look at potentially what percentage, what's the contribution, what's suggesting that people are quitting their jobs and why they're quitting jobs and what's their confidence. While unemployment rates are still high, you saw our late rates there, 5.4 and 7.4 for Benton Franklin counties. We have our seasonal reasons for our labor force engagement, but consumer confidence survey conducted by Conference Board suggests that in historically, it's easy to find a job for many individuals who are looking for a job than it has been before. There's a lot more job openings and diversity in job openings. Employers will continue to struggle to hire because of that skill mismatch that's happening for majority of our labor force, as well as of those job openings. What's going to happen for the future of the businesses is that firms are facing recruitment retention difficulties. They will have options to what they can do at their disposal, increasing pool of potential workers. It will help them in the short term, but in the long term, current staff and new hires, lower skills, lowering the skill for recruitments and training on the job training opportunities, working with educational institutions, working with workforce development councils to promote the jobs and how to cross match and do the promotional training and education for the jobs they have available will be ongoing efforts for many businesses. And more engaged you are through workforce development councils and businesses and educational system, more likely as a business you will have in hiring those individuals that are coming from those programs for the future. It's not shortest term resolution, but it is a long-term resolution for many of our businesses in state, locally, and nationally. The next level, very quickly, the ratio of job openings to hires is a proxy for the average time to fill a position. Now it is at a highest level in the history. Employers are likely to continue to raise wages. They're likely to continue to lower their expectations for current job openings. They're more likely to look into ways to retain their workforce. And also, ratio is expected to be lower by the end of this year, as we saw, as I mentioned earlier, due to different factors of economic activities. For participation, we have a lot more engagement, as we saw earlier, and for the region of male workforce and female workforce. And pandemic really amplified decreases in the labor force participation rate for female workforce than that of male workforce. And you can see here on this graph, since December 2021 and February 2022, female labor force participation has declined. It's for population 25 to 54, and this is prime working population of all both genders. And in general, it does not exceed 76% in for labor force participation rate for female workforce. Labor force participation rate for male workforce in the nation is well over 88%. So this continues to increase. We saw that during Great Recession, male workforce was more impacted. By the same time, female was impacted as well and has a slower recovery. This time, impacts were the same, but the recovery for female participation rates is much slower than that for male. Some of the contribution is very simply is that female workforce is taking their time out for different reasons, personal reasons, advancement or enhancement of their skills, knowledge, abilities, educational attainment, or even their careers. But getting them back into the market will be a challenge for all of us in the community, as well as businesses, how to gear towards a female workforce and how to engage them a lot more in the labor market. When I looked at some of the statistics at the state level, it showed me very interesting characteristic is that our minorities and female workforce are much more engaged in the labor market at certain age intervals than a male general workforce. When I looked at female Hispanic, for example, their engagement in the labor market is one of the lowest, 44% participation rate versus that of a male Hispanic workforce at 85% participation rate. When I looked at Black population resident labor force participation, Black female participation in the labor market is 85% versus that of male participation rate. It's very different depending on the structure of households and the structure of family values and morals and activities, from gender to ethnicity and race. And we have to take all of these characteristics in account to understand how to better serve each one of these demographics differently and how to retain them in the labor market and on the jobs. So I might be speaking very fast, but I have 2 more slides to show you. And I have to pass this over to Tiffany. So overall, nationally, jobs still remain below pandemic. We saw earlier that regionally and statewide, we are about statewide 95% recovery in the jobs, locally 150% recovery rate. So we have a lot more jobs to talk about. At the national level, there's a lot more challenges to those numbers. So they still remain below pandemic, while for female workforce, jobs were a significant loss during pandemic, and they still remain in larger deficit than that for male workforce. With this, it just shows us that there's a slower recovery for women in employment than that for men in general. And we have to take these challenges head on and understand the reasons behind that. Some of the reasons are listed here to why people are leaving labor market. We have a significant number of people who left the labor market. And here, why is it? So if they're unemployed for looking employment at the national level, 1.9 million people are looking for jobs. They're active in the jobs. They like about 700,000 people are wanting a job, but they're not looking for a job. So if you have a friend and like, oh, I'm not looking for a job, but there's a job available and everything matches their list. It's like the wages they want to work for, the positions they want to do, atmosphere of that company, and environment they want to be in. They're going to say, oh, okay, I'll get the job. But they're not going to go out and look for the job specifically to say, I need a job, I'm looking for it. But next level is that about 320,000 individuals left jobs with young children. So there's a lot of people who are leaving a job market, especially female workforce, because of the parental care. The next level is taking care of their household family members, husbands, parents, siblings, and things like that, individuals like that. So they're leaving for some of those reasons. Not in the labor force for any other reason, about 240,000 individuals. But 3.58 million individuals in nation left the labor market because they retired. And many individuals, due to their stability of financial market and GDP growth and wage growth, are able to realize their retirements, early retirements, and go and enjoy their lives. And these are individuals, 3.58 million individuals, you're not able to course back into the market and say, hey, come work for me because I'm going to pay you. They say, well, I earn all those wages. I want to enjoy it, my life now. I'm going to go somewhere on a beach or, mountain hiking, something else. They want to enjoy their life finally. And these are individuals who are not coming into the labor market. And that's one of those most challenging things for all of us is the retirement wave, which is being, hidden due to other reasons for being unemployed. And these individuals, of course, work and deserve their way to exit the labor market and not get engaged. Now, our challenge of all of us, even businesses like you and policymakers and organizations like Tiffany's, is to look into those upcoming workforce in the region, which we have over 24% of individuals 24 years and younger in 2-county region, which is one of the highest, youngest population in the state, who will be entering incrementally in a labor market to how to engage them and how to skill them up towards the jobs that we have and will have in the future. So hopefully all of this information will be enlightening to you, and it's going to give you a lot to think about for the future of how you do your job business in regards of hiring for the jobs, retaining the workforce on the jobs, and creating quality jobs for our region and community to grow and prosper. Thank you.
All right, thank you. That was a lot of information, and I think a lot of it, I think it's nice to see the breakdown of what's going on, rather than just sitting here, wondering why is no one applying? Where's everyone going? So thank you for your presentation, Aisha. It helped kind of piece the puzzle together, I think, for us. We're going to switch over now to Tiffany Scott with the Benton Franklin Workforce Development Council. And let me just pull up the presentation really quick here. And hopefully you all can see the screen. Tiffany, does that look good on your end?
It looks great, Logan. Thank you so
Perfect.
much. Hey, exceptional presentation, Aisha. Way to go, my friend. This isn't our first time presenting together, and when I think I know it all, Aisha has an excellent data point to share that just blows my mind and makes me think, hey, how do we digest this as a public workforce system and help to create solutions for our local businesses? And that's really what I'm here today, is just to communicate with you and let you know that, hey, we made it. It's been very, very challenging as of the last 2 years. I have been the Chief Executive Officer for the Benton Franklin Workforce Development Council for 4 years. So 50% of my tenure has been spent during COVID times. So I would really just like to engage with you today, let you know a little bit about my leadership style, how we are successful in our public workforce system, and then share just some ideas on how you might be able to possibly implement some changes, as well as provide some tools on local resources that could, if utilized effectively, potentially help you out a little bit. So we talk about the Great Resignation, and the challenging thought is this also a great awakening? Because of the time that people spent at home, there has been ample opportunities to think on your current life situation, really prioritize or reprioritize your values, and then, pivot from a current situation into something different, if that's, the choice of you and your family. So I have, the definition from Wikipedia. If we could go back just to that other slide, Logan, my apologies. Just to dive in, the Great Resignation has also been called the Big Quit or the Great Reshuffle. And it's pretty much captures the ongoing economic trend in which employees are voluntarily resigning from their jobs. The CEO of LinkedIn, Ryan Rosenlonsky, has been quoted as saying that more people will be doing work that they love at companies that they feel passionate about, leading to greater success for organizations that engage with their employees with empathy and trust. And, however, that does really put the pressure on HR leaders, small business company owners, all of us that do this work. Next slide, please. When we look at the reasons for staff exiting the world of work, you'll see there's a top 10 list that's been provided here. And this is from the Money, Career, and Life website that I like to dive into periodically to see the latest and greatest. And this does really kind of crosswalk a bit over into what Aisha provided for us statistically for the state and the nation. One of the main reasons is the unsatisfaction for salaries or pay. There's a lot of stress that's going on as people recover from COVID. And then there can also be the pressure of full plates and the unmanageable workloads. There's also the challenge of growth. Individuals want to grow and advance and have those opportunities. And they also want to align with the values of their employer, as well as make sure that the interest of their industry aligns with their career path. Of course, there's a lot of thought being given nowadays to the work and the life balance, and benefits are very crucial as well to provide for your family and making sure that they are supported as well. And of course, employee recognition can come into play as a reason why employees are leaving their jobs. And interesting is that the concerns around the employer's ability to address COVID is number 9, where that used to be a little bit higher on the list. This is data from 2021. So as soon as that pandemic hit in 2020, I think, number 9 was more of a prevalent factor on the list. And then number 10 is individuals do seek out, depending on their industry and the ability to perform work from a home office, like I am doing today. Some people, that's more of a priority. And if they aren't given that option, will leave their employers. Then there's those other reasons. I did, want to call out that, retirement is listed there. And it's always fun to have conversations with some of my mentors that have made the decision to exit the workforce and kind of hear the rationale around it. And so happy for them. However, it does create a unique challenge, as Aisha alluded to in her presentation. So moving on to the next topic that we're going to just kind of cover briefly is that there are those specific carrots that can be dangled should you have an employer that, or excuse me, a staff or an employee in your organization that is wanting to exit. And you can see that this list does align specifically with the previous slide in the deck, is that they potentially might be seeking more compensation, that healthier balance of life and work, and then the advancement opportunities and benefits, and just that recognition as well for their contribution to work in your workforce. And one thing that we do want to really also pay attention to is the presence of the student loan assistance, whether your employees are currently in higher education or have had a paralyzing amount of student debt as they have recently graduated. you will want to make sure that they are definitely, under consideration if your organization has the resources to do student loan forgiveness, because that can play in as well. So for 2022, we're well into this calendar year. I just want to encourage our community, if you are leading and employing individuals, you want to look at your current operations and see which areas that you're excelling in. Pat yourself on the back, give yourself the kudos for those positive things that you have going on, and realize, taking a step back, give yourself some breathing room and the grace to know that you can, think on those things that are working well. And then also give yourself the patience and time to address those things that you might improve on. And what can you do to build a process within your business that can help with retaining your workforce and your employees. As we move on to the next slide here, I just wanted to call out that transformational leadership has always been something that has worked well for me. If you are interested in knowing more about transformational leadership, there's multiple sources on the topic. And at the core of transformational leadership, you're going to find that it really is a style that combines the reward system for your staff, as well as combining the intentional communication that alleviates burnout. And it does have a focus on mental health, emotional health, physical health, and the full person. And when I speak to this, it's not just the leaders that are part of transformational leadership, it's our teams as well. And if we're not ready and prepared to implement transformational leadership, then it's not going to go over well. So just as we travel, the flight attendants tell us to, focus on putting on your mask first prior to those around you that are traveling with you. Try to really think about your own personal self-care, and know that you want to get to the state where you can take on transformational leadership and implement changes for your team. As we move on to talk about a little bit more on the human-centered element of business, there are the 5 P's of business, where we do look at passion, purpose, principles, potential, and people. And this really does dive into the human-centered design element of work. So personally, through our local workforce system, I am a certified LUMA practitioner for human-centered design techniques. And there's multiple offerings where you can learn about human-centered design and really create a ongoing receptive environment in working with your teams. And the LUMA Institute was able to provide me with my certification. And if you choose to learn a bit more about LUMA, please contact me. And further on in the presentation, I will give you some information for some other team members in our local workforce system that can help with that. The gist of human-centered design, if you're not aware, is human-centered design is used as the design and management framework that develops solutions to problems by involving the human perspective in all steps of the problem-solving process. Human involvement typically takes place in observing the problem, the context, brainstorming, conceptualizing, and then developing and implementing that solution. It's a design and approach that is an interactive system and develops an aim for making systems usable and focuses on the user. And this approach enhances the effectiveness and the efficiencies of the world of work. One thing that I do want to call out before I move on is potential. Organizations when you're looking at the 5 P's of business, if you focus in on having an impact beyond your profit and the social and environmental impact, you will be able to have your staff take notice of that. And as we're all aware, we kind of paused quite a bit during the pandemic, and there are some marginalized populations in our local community that need to be engaged with a little bit more. Aisha did articulate some statistics around that. So, take a look around your office, or, whether do you have Black, Indigenous people of color, Asian American Pacific Islanders, as well as people with disabilities? Do you also have veterans represented? Because when you are in your world of work, you're there sometimes more than you are with your own family, and you want to feel represented. You want to feel like you are with your community. And then, of course, with Franklin County being over 50% Latinx, we want to make sure that we engage the Latinx Hispanic population as well. So I love human-centered design, and just want to give a shout out to that and present it as a tool that might be of value for you and your business. So I've been, mentioned a few times in different forums, where I will comment that the Benton Franklin Workforce Development Council is a small but mighty team. We here, as you see organizationally, we have a great deal of responsibility to Benton and Franklin counties. If you're not aware, we are a 501c3, and we're also quasi-governmental. So when we look at our board of directors, which I have 25 individuals that I'm fortunate to work with, they do represent not only our county commissions. We have a county commissioner from both Franklin and Benton County on our board. We also have labor represented, as well as education, public sector business, private sector business. And then we also do have ex officio members that provide the expertise that we need to make sure that we're really in tune with what's going on in our community as we make decisions. Our operational budget, we have an ebb and flow between 5 and 10 million usually. We're a little bit at the lower end right now, and are working with Congress at this moment for reauthorization of the law that we work under, the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act. But we do have a huge commitment to running 2 specific brick and mortar facilities. So I did want to mention that TC Futures is a comprehensive youth center that is in Kennewick, and we do serve youth ages 16 to 24. And the services are in partnership with Educational Service District 123. And if you didn't know, GEDs can be obtained at TC Futures. So if you know a young person that is really interested in re-engaging, if you happen to be affiliated with the school district as well, we have an open doors program, so that referral from the school district can happen. And our goal here is to look at opportunities for youth to get level set before young adulthood takes over, and they potentially might make some negative choices. And then WorkSource Columbia Basin, which is our American Job Center, is a comprehensive center with an amazing group of partners, as well as expert staff that help not only job seekers, but employers. And I'll share a little bit more information about that here shortly. So TC Futures, WorkSource Columbia Basin, this amazing team that's referenced here, not a ton of people, but we are responsible for almost 70 plus people in our local workforce system, making leadership decisions that impact the services to our community. And we're proud to do this work. And I will mention that there's always a corporate culture element to business. And 4 years ago, when I set up shop in my office, I put up a sign. I have it here in my home office as well, and it really just kind of talks to the cadence of how we operate, and is beyond our organizational mission and vision. The focus is that we are not a team because we work together. We're a team because we respect, trust, and care for each other. And that right there has bode well for us as we have gotten through the challenges of the past 2 years. Next slide. So what we have to realize as leaders is that one size does not fit all. So I took a summary here of the different generations that a consultant that I'm affiliated with from Chicago provided. And I wanted to kind of communicate a little bit of detail around each generation so that you as business owners can understand the different perspectives, because depending on when you were born and how you came up in the United States, you're going to have a different way of engaging into the world of work. And I want to provide a disclosure statement that, these are just generalizations, encourage just individual conversation, because we all cannot be categorized by the generation that we belong to. But these are some strong analytics that have been done that can kind of help guide you, that you can utilize as you're working with your employees. So when we look at the baby boomer generation, and I really quickly want to say that I have an oops here. We actually have 5 active generations in our workforce currently, and this is the first time in our nation's history that this has happened. There's the traditionalists. That generation should have been listed above the boomers, so I do apologize. And that does encompass individuals that were born from 1925 to 1945. So a little bit more about the generations. We do have the traditionalists of that generation does encompass 2% of our current workforce. Baby boomers encompass 25% of our workforce. Generation X is 33% of our workforce. Millennials are 35% of our workforce. And Generation Z is 5% of our workforce. So a little bit more about the specifics around each generation to kind of enlighten you a little bit. When we look at traditionalists, some of the characteristics that have been shared about traditionalists is that they are dependable, they're straightforward, tactful, and very loyal. What shaped this generation was the Great Depression, World War II, radio, and movies. People that are traditionalists are motivated by respect, recognition, providing long-term values to the company. Their communication style is more personal in nature, and they do provide or prefer even like handwritten communication. Their worldview is obedience over individualism. Age equals seniority, and advancing through the hierarchy makes the most sense to them from their perspective. So when you're working with someone from this traditionalist generation, you would want to make sure that you provide satisfying work and opportunities that help them contribute and emphasize the stability of your company. When we look at the baby boomers, some strong characteristics there are the optimism, the competitive nature, the work ethic, and the team focus of being together and working hard as a group. 65% of baby boomers do plan to work past age 65. So that does kind of contribute to our workforce. Baby boomers have been shaped by the Vietnam War, by civil rights movement, and by Watergate. They're motivated by the company loyalty, teamwork, and their duty. Their communication style is whatever is most efficient, so including phone calls and that face-to-face interaction. Their worldview does encompass achievement and also is a strong return on investment of paying one's dues, and they do sacrifice for success. So employers, when you're looking at this generation, you want to provide them with specific goals and deadlines, And you know what? And you also want to put them in mentorship roles and offer coaching and lots of feedback. When we look at Generation X, they are flexible, informal, and very independent. They're shaped by the AIDS pandemic and the fall of the Berlin Wall, as well as that dot-com boom. All of the startup founders in the United States, if you look at that statistic, 55% come from Generation X. Generation X is motivated by diversity, that work-life balance, the personal, professional interests, rather than the interests of their company. Their communication style, like the baby boomers, is whatever is most effective, and they like to include phone calls and face-to-face communication as well. And their worldview is that of diversity, and they're quick to move on if their employer fails to meet their needs. And when you are an employer and you're working with Generation X, you want to give them immediate feedback, provide a flexible work environment, and arrange for that work-life balance, and extend opportunities for personal and professional development. Moving on to Generation Y, or millennials, 75% of millennials will make up our global workforce by 2025. So let's learn as much as we can, because that's our future right there, our immediate future. Millennials are shaped by Columbine, 9/11, as well as the internet. They're motivated by responsibility, the quality of their manager, and the unique work experience. Their communication styles is instant messaging, text messaging, and email. Their worldview is seeking challenge, growing, and developing, as well as a fun work and life balance. And they are likely to leave an organization if there are changes that don't align with their values. So employers, when you are working with millennials, you want to get to know them personally. You want to manage by results, be flexible, and also provide immediate feedback. So the latest generation that we have in our workforce is Generation Z. Generation Z has the characteristics of being a global generation, extremely entrepreneurial, as well as progressive. And an interesting statistic is that 40% of Generation Z want to have interaction with their bosses on not just a daily basis, but several times a day. So that constant interaction is really important to them. They are shaped by life after 9/11, the Great Recession, access to, and the fact that they've had access to technology their entire lives. And they're very motivated by diversity, personalization, and creativity. Their communication style, like that of millennials, is instant messaging, text, and then, of course, we have the presence of social media, which is very important to them. Their worldview is self-identifiable, and they value independence and individuality, and they want to be able to innovate their coworkers and work with a lot of technology. So employers, just a little point of wisdom here, when you are working with Generation Z, you want to offer opportunities to work on multiple projects at the same time and provide a work-life balance, as also allow them to be self-directed and independent. And one thing that I do want to comment is I'm fortunate to have 4 of the 5 generations that I've spoken about at the Benton Franklin Workforce Development Council. And one thing my grandma told me many, many moons ago is that it takes all kinds of people to make the world go round. So if you can get the diversity of multiple generations reflected in your workforce, it actually breeds success. And excuse me, it is a strong investment of time to get to that point. However, it is a strong return on investment. Next slide, please. So I wanted to provide an example of what we do at the Benton Franklin Workforce Development Council. We did hire our last staff member just, well, it'll be 2 weeks this coming Monday. And the elements of the job description that we put forward to the public contain some specific elements that really do bode well. So I wanted to share these with you so that you can think and see if you could potentially implement them as well. So we do include our vision, which is that we contribute to our prosperous community by elevating the human potential. Our mission as well, we promote a prosperous community by providing the progressive workforce system that is needed. Of course, the title there, we hired for a communications coordinator. And we also let that individual know, all the individuals know, that they would be reporting to the community programs manager. The position being full-time as well as a 14-month project-based position. So I had a little bit of anxiety when we reviewed this aspect and thought about putting it in, but really transparency, candor, honesty is the best policy. Potentially we're a little nervous thinking that with this position being funded for only the 14 months, that it would discourage people from applying, but I think it actually helped. So we did have 24 applicants for this position, very qualified individuals. So, lead in with honesty. And here's a big one, is that you can put in that salary range. And a lot of times businesses, want to keep that card close to them. But sometimes you can be, unfortunately, wasting your time and other individuals' times that are applying for the position if you get all the way to the negotiation point of hiring an employee and there absolutely maybe is no wiggle room, or there was a very large gap in expectations. So here you're posting the position, this is what it's about, this is what we can hire you at, and is this a good fit for you? And then of course we do mention our benefits and the work schedule. So thinking about what you can do for flexibility, if your team was effective during a 100% telework environment, maybe pivot and do a hybrid. I was fortunate to have the support of our board of directors, and we were able to implement in March a 4-10s work schedule, and with that 50% of that being a telework environment. So half time working from your home office and half time working from our brick and mortar. And then I always encourage, that reflective excitement piece. So, what are your positions about? What kind of person do you want to join your team? We've decided to create more of a question process. This will hit the job description at the very front piece, even before those requirements. We want to know, are you creative? Do you have outreach experience? That was one of the major requirements of this outreach to historically disadvantaged communities grant that we got from the Department of Commerce and wanted to hire the communications coordinator for. Do you want to make a difference? And if it's a yes, then, read further, because we want you to work for us. And, this approach might not work for you, and that's okay. It's just a best practice that has been working well for us. When our subject matter experts convene on an annual basis, the Benton Franklin Workforce Development Council takes into consideration what's going on in our local economy, and we facilitate the analyzation of occupations in demand and in decline for our local community. So we have our partners within the public workforce system that join us at a roundtable event. We also have our stakeholders in the community, employers, board members, education providers, training providers, and then you might also want to join us next year, because what we do as the Workforce Development Council is we determine what occupations are in demand, are balanced, and in decline in our local community. So I wanted to share this link here to the website, Employment Security Department. The regional economists are so supportive to us. And I think, or I know actually we have the best regional economist in the state, Aisha Soljic. They do a ton of work in this analytical environment and are able to give us the data we need to make the determination on occupations. This is a wonderful resource for you if you're not quite sure how much you should pay a position. If you are seeing it as a high growth occupation, then that means there's probably other businesses in the Tri-Cities that are also wanting to hire individuals. So if you go to this specific website, it automatically pops up for the state of Washington, but on the right-hand side, you can actually dive down to Benton and Franklin counties, and you can look at all of the occupations that we have here and kind of look at the skills, the activity that are associated. I went ahead and grabbed this position for the transportation, storage, and distribution managers. You'll see kind of the duties of what they do, as well as the recommendation from the Federal Bureau of Labor and Statistics that they really want to make sure that, excuse me, that they cite the preferred education that's affiliated with each occupation, excuse me. And I really want to really encourage us to challenge that. If you can post a specific job opportunity that is more affiliated, not so much with education. As Aisha had mentioned, we have close to 20% of our workforce that does not have college, that might have that high school diploma, but might not have that college degree. So maybe it wouldn't work for this specific occupation, but if you're willing to hire for skill and not so much that degree, that could create some flexibility, and you can vet that skill of those individuals as they embark in their tenure with you. Moving on to the next slide. We have a wonderful team of subject matter experts that are available to help you as a business owner. And when I pulled some data from the last quarter, the team of experts that we have at WorkSource Columbia Basin served over 200 employers this past quarter, as well as provided multiple services to those businesses. And we operate with funds that are the result of your dollars as taxpayers. So we're investing back into our community. So these services are available to you. And the outline here does provide for a sector representative to engage with you on an individual basis. And if your sector isn't represented here, no worries. There is a phone number there that you can call, or if you prefer to email the business services team, do so using that WorkSource Columbia Basin WSCB employers at esd.wa.gov. There's such a great menu of services that they offer. It could be, that one-on-one chatting about even this topic that we're talking about right now. Why aren't I able to fill my workforce needs? They can help troubleshoot with you. They can help you with your postings. WorkSource WA is a wonderful tool. And FYI, if you didn't know, we also have a partnership with Monster. So all of your job postings actually go over to the Monster website for free. So if you're currently paying for a Monster subscription, let's stop that, because we can actually do that work for you for free. And then of course, there's some wonderful tools out there, Indeed, other websites as well, linking through LinkedIn as well. This business services team can't say a great enough things about them, the leadership at WorkSource that that helps them engage with our business community. And, we have bandwidth, we have capacity, and we would love to have you come into the center or see TC Futures if you are looking to hire more of a younger workforce. They can help you there as well. I did want to shout out one specific kind of tool in the toolkit. I titled it "Show Me the Money." This was a header that one of my team members used in a meeting I was at recently, and just thought it was a little captivating and wanted to lead in with that. So OJT stands for on the job training. And as a business, you invest so much money into change. So when you have an employee that exits your workforce, and then when you have to engage a new hire and create a training plan and onboard that person, it's expensive. So messaging here is that we can help with that. We have resources through the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act where we can help with those extensive costs, that are affiliated with those changes. So we could potentially offer you a reimbursement of 50% of those wages that you're paying that individual when they start with your company. They do have to work 32 hours or more, and we can go on a time frame that meets you, because we know that sometimes people can be onboarded in a month, and sometimes it takes a little bit longer than that. But wanted to give a shout out to on the job training, and please ask one of our sector representatives about it if you are interested. That does conclude my portion of this presentation today. Please connect with me on LinkedIn, shoot me an email. Please visit our website, bentonfranklinwdc.com, to learn more about my organization, my board of directors, and our amazing team. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Tiffany. And thank you, Tiffany and Aisha, for the presentations. I think they really complement, both of the presentations complement each other very well. And I said this once already, but it's nice to have a better understanding of kind of what's going on and how to maybe mitigate some of the losses occurring in the job market. Before we wrap up, I know we went over a little bit, but I wanted to just kind of get your 2 cents. Looking at the job market, what's been happening over the past couple of years, what's your opinion, or what do you predict might be happening in the next 6 to 12 months? Are we going to continue seeing this mass exodus, or do you think maybe as businesses start to implement some of these changes and flexibility, what are we looking at?
I'll jump in first, if you don't mind, Aisha. I believe this is, from what's around me, what's happening on the ground. I would say that it's going to be more of the same, potentially not as intense as it has been. However, it's our responsibility now as employers to be able to work with our employees to engage and retain. So this is a completely different environment that we're in. Some of us did live through the Great Recession of 2008, 2009, where people that had four-year degrees, master's degrees, had to take advantage of very entry-level positions just in order to make ends meet, because that environment created a situation where the employers had the upper hand. Now it's completely flipped. So employers, businesses, we're here, Workforce Development Council, the workforce system is here to work with you, because we know now the pressure's on you, and you have to make some exponential changes in some cases to pivot and incorporate different operational strategies in order for your people to stay and also obtain that workforce that you need.
Thank you. And Aisha, do you have any predictions, number-wise, maybe, where, I know you mentioned that we had fully recovered and then some from 2020 when, there was unemployment skyrocketed. But what do you have any insights for us?
Yeah, typically our region goes into even higher labor market tightness and shortages because of industries that are coming on board during summer months. And we do increase into one of the or some of the lowest unemployment rates and number of individuals on unemployment during these months, especially these next 6 months. So for the next 6 months, we are expecting that, yeah, it might ease up a little bit towards the tightness. As we saw, we have a little bit more labor force than available jobs. But then this labor force that came into the market over the past next couple of months and was unemployed is labor force that came out from the seasonal jobs, and we are expecting them to go back to work. So with that 1.5 jobs per every employee may go down to maybe 1.5 job, 1.5 employees the other way, 1.5 employees per every job to 1.5 jobs per every employee, unemployed person. So it might flip around for us, especially because of our seasonal factor. Well, something that might play a big role is that the structural changes for business hirings, the way they're hiring the workforce they need, current staff, promotions, encouragement, giving them raises, structural changes of the wage ranges and things like that may support their retention and quality recruitment as well. Also lowering the skills. Maybe they don't need to look for 5-year experience, maybe 3-year experience and future on-the-job training, which might be beneficial from partnering with a Workforce Development Council to get that I don't know, was it 50%, 30% wage? Tiffany can correct me on that. I just skipped in my head on that. But it can get a wage replacement from these programs if you have on-the-job training and, lowering the requirements might benefit. So these changes the businesses are doing are not going to be short-term. These are long-term, and they've been happening before. But now it's going to be even more amplified for the future of labor shortages. I'm not seeing exodus for a local region. We are rather benefiting from our population growth and new entrants into the market. Our youth is coming on board. We have one of the highest entrants in the educational system in Tri-Cities because we have population growth. And also that population that's coming out of high schools, entering, the job market is 16 years of age, and they might be working and going to education, and there's a lot of opportunities for them too. So we may benefit in general just because our population is growing, that we may not have the exodus of the labor force, but rather a beneficial contribution to the labor force growth from all the changes that are happening within our regional community.
Thank you. I just want to say before we wrap up, thank you both again for being here today and offering your insight and the information. It helped paint a picture, I think, for what's going on. So I did want to say before we end that a copy or a recording of this will be on Facebook and our YouTube, so any of you can go back and look at the information presented. But with that, thank you, Tiffany. Thank you, Aisha, for being here. And I hope you all have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Logan.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Everybody.